there. Welcome to Humans of Authenticity, and thank you for choosing my podcast. My name is Lily, and I'll be your host. Designed as a blank canvas to weave together a rich tapestry of human experiences and identity, Humans of Authenticity will share many heartfelt conversations with my guests on their stories and how they embrace their authenticity in all forms. Join me in these conversations, peel back all the layers and see how authenticity shines through. In each episode, my guests will choose a keyword from a selection of 12, which will be used as the theme of the conversation. Enjoy the episode today. Hi April, thank you so much for joining me on this episode today of Humans of Authenticity. Would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners first?
Sure, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is April Tone. I am based out of Houston, Texas, where it's very warm in the fall and very warm in the winter and even hotter in the summer. I am a senior manager of technical and engineering communities operations with the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. I am the person who deals with all of the ins and outs of our component groups and their conferences and making sure that their products are successful. That includes anything from strategic planning to succession planning and the ins and outs of their conferences as well.
Nice. That sounds very full on. Let's start with your story. Can you share with us 3 things you love about yourself?
Oh, great. 3 things. Okay. I love that I don't quit. I love that I know when to say when. That's important, especially with that first one. And I love that I love people because it's very important in doing what I do.
Your first point really intriguing. So when you say don't quit, what exactly does that mean? How does it look like? Do you have an example to share with us?
Sure, I have been in literally every type of competition or event, or rather, I would say any type of problems or challenges that I've had to deal with, even since I was a little girl. There were always opportunities to quit. And so I've always made it a point to go after what it is I've wanted, whether it was on a professional basis or a family basis or a personal one. So when you're looking at don't quit, what I mean by that is whatever it is, that passion that I have or that anyone else has, they shouldn't quit on it. And when it pertains to looking at those goals and those passions, it's okay to take a break, but it's not okay to give up on your dreams. Sometimes we will get into the thick of it, and sometimes I would get into the thick of it, and it would become very, very hard. For example, my CAE journey. My CAE journey was not like most people's. It was a repetitive one. I decided to do my CAE because I knew that there was more that I can do with what I had. I saw the CAE as an opportunity to learn more and to do more with my organization. I set out to go get my CAE, and I met some phenomenal people. I did it just before the pandemic, met great people in my study group and great instructors. And then I didn't pass the CAE the first time. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I really thought I had it. Great opportunity, great learning advantages. And there it is, slapped me right in the face, the opportunity to give up because of an obstacle. And I decided that wasn't going to be me. I took it again, met some more great people. The journey, like I said, wasn't like others, but it definitely was meant for me. I took it again, and this time, oh my goodness, I was 1 point away. I didn't pass it again. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, is this something that I actually need to do? What am I supposed to pull from this example? I knew the work, I knew what I was supposed to do, I knew the exam, I knew all of it because I had prepared. And then this opportunity presented itself for me to learn a very hard lesson or very valuable lesson in this process. While I was studying for the exam this time, I met groups of people that were connected to organizations such as ASAE who gave me knowledge that there's no way I would have gotten if I had passed it the first or the second time. I wouldn't have been in touch with these people. We became friends through a separate study group. So, by me meeting these people, I was able to find a whole world of new people to network with that plugged me in and has set me towards successful paths moving forward since then. So I took it the third time, and this time when I took it, as I was preparing for it rather, I was going with the mindset of I'm already a CAE. This last time it required me to change my mindset seat of the title that I already had. I was sitting in the seat of the title that I wanted. And so because of that mind shift, I was able to not only pass the CAE, but to bring with me a whole new network of individuals that I had never met. And so by me not quitting, I was able to foster new relationships and change my mindset for the betterment of the position I was already in. A lot of times we don't always get what we want when we want it, but I definitely got what I needed when I needed it.
That was outstanding. And I love how you concluded with the mindset piece. We all know that once we change our mindset, it helps us to broaden our perspectives and we start
Absolutely.
seeing things differently. And that helps us internally to realize our goals a lot better.
Yeah.
In your stories, I heard a lot of great self-determinations to realize your goal. I'm keep questioning what motivated you to keep pushing on. Surely somewhere along that journey,
Mhm.
it must feel tired. And have you ever thought about letting it go, giving up? What motivate you to push on?
Well, first I had the goal in mind, right? I had this goal in mind. I decided that professionally, this was something that was going to help benefit me. And absolutely during the process, after that second time, really, I questioned if this was something that I really needed to do. And everyone should have a coach. I had a coach and I've had a coach since I was born. She's my mom. My mom was the one who said, "Are you really going to let one point cause you to not do what you've set after to do in your heart?" So it's a combination of two things. It's one, knowing what you want. You have to know exactly what you want, and you have to be determined relentlessly to go out there and get it. But also sometimes you need a coach to remind you of why you're doing what you're doing. And so that one little point didn't do anything but tell me I was 99% of the way there. I just had one more percent to gain. And that's what I did.
I'd love to meet your mom one day. She seems amazing.
She's a great coach, even better mom. But yeah, growing up with that kind of mindset, it's really hard to get defeated. And so, as we get older, sometimes we forget the important trinkets and the important gems that we used growing up. And that was a moment that I had forgotten it. And then I was quickly reminded of who I was. And it didn't take long. That's one thing that I appreciate, is that I have what I call bounce back ability. How quickly are you going to bounce back from whatever situation that you're in? Having that bounce back ability made it so that I could proceed with what I was looking for, and having a coach to give you a little bit of a pep talk helps too.
I agree. And I think that bounce back ability is such an amazing tools that we can have.
Mhm.
How do you train your bounce back ability?
That's a great question. Truthfully, you have to remember who you are. So when I'm sitting there taking the CAE, this is not that I'm not going to ever be a CAE. It just wasn't my time. And sometimes you don't see it, rather, every time you don't see it when you're in the thick of it. I did not see it. I did not understand it. But now that I'm out of it, hindsight is always 2020. I can see why that journey was necessary for me, because how I thought that last time taking the CAE exam was not how I thought the first time taking the CAE exam. I was still very good at my job, very talented. I think that whether you take the CAE or not, that doesn't reflect on how well you are at doing what you do. It's just a matter of change of frame of mind, or mindset, as we talked about, and the frame of thought. So with that, I was able to sit there and think about who I am, what I do and why I do it. With bounce back ability, it takes practice. It's no different than the NBA players or WNBA players who have to practice drills all the time. It's a constant reminder of what you're doing, who you are, affirmations every day, journaling. It's an overdose of positivity so that when you do get into the situation that puts you on the struggle bus a little bit, you don't last there long. That bounce back ability happens because you're training your brain to think of yourself in a positive manner. That's why affirmations being spoken aloud are so important, because you're telling yourself who you are. It's even better doing it in the mirror, because it almost sounds like someone else is talking to you, but it's actually you talking to yourself, the person in the mirror, encouraging yourself, and those words get to your ears, get to your head, and gets to your heart so that it prepares you for whatever situation that may come in the future.
You remind me so much of my younger sister. She's really into beauties and makeup. She's a badass lawyer. Anytime before she goes out, she puts on makeup and look at her in the mirror and say, I'm so pretty. And then I can see
I
a
love it.
different shade of lights, different set of energy coming out from her. Then she put on her shoes and walk out the door full of that,
Mhm.
I don't know, empowered energy. You really remind me of her way of expressing herself.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love your sister. So cool.
Now let's go back to the themes of our podcast, Humans of Authenticity, and the reason we have this conversation. I see a lot of literature and research out there suggesting that we should embrace our authentic selves.
Mhm.
However, we all know that it is often easier said than done. What factors do you think prevent us from showing our true self in a daily routine?
There are many, but I think the most profound are the thoughts about what will people think of me, the response factor, and then also what does that change? Sometimes being your authentic self may change how your way of life is or your way of work is, and that's scary. We've been kind of trained in a way or programmed in a way to behave a certain way, sit a certain way, speak a certain way, present ourselves in a certain way. And those things render a certain result. Now, for some people, that's their authentic self, and that's perfectly fine. For others, they're playing a role, and that becomes dangerous because by being their authentic selves, they are afraid of what will happen as a result of doing so. I think that has a lot to do with worrying about what the response will be. I've always said I don't have the energy to change other people or worry about what they think of me. Because if I could do that, I could make world peace. I could stop the wars going on in other countries, in our country, or down the street, or whatever, all of the crime and everything. If I had that level of skills and knowledge, it would be used on something greater than worrying about what another person thinks of me. I've always said it's too exhausting to be anybody else. I'm already tired from being me. So why try to be someone different? It's exhausting enough to be April. I'm not going to try to be April with an asterisk connected to it. So that's kind of how I approach it. But, it is different for every person, and it's just the comfort part that you have to address. You have to be comfortable in your own skin, however that looks.
I want to dig a little bit deeper on that to be comfortable around our own skin, figuratively and conceptually. We live in a society where as soon as we step out of the house, we see people we were expected to perform following the norms, meet society's expectation.
Mhm.
How do we balance our authentic selves with that expectation so that we can feel comfortable within our own skin in that society's expectation?
It's a great question. I would say we don't balance it, because you will never meet every single expectation of another person. You won't. It just won't happen, because as soon as you meet that one, there'll be a new one. And then you'll be chasing the need to meet that expectation or appease them. There'll be another one. You'll run yourself tired, and you'll look around and you'll realize everything that you're about is about someone else and not about you. So I don't think that there is a balance. I think that you be yourself, and then if that appeases other people in the process, then that's just a bonus or the sprinkle on that ice cream, as I always say. But at the end of the day, when you go home and you look yourself in that mirror, are you happy with what you see? Do you see yourself, or do you see a persona that you've built for somebody else? That's where you have to decide what's more important. Is it more important to balance out and appease that person? Or is it more important to lay your head down knowing that you've done all you can do that day and the rest is history?
Really, really powerful thoughts. I love this. Talking about being yourself, let's move to your chosen keyword. I gave you a list of 12 keywords to choose from. Which one did you select?
I selected failure. I know, right? The big F word.
I'm loving this. In the context of authenticity, why did you select this word?
To do things that most people don't do in
Tell
general.
me more. Yeah.
Yep. And most people don't like to talk about their failures. And I have never seen a failure just be that. Like, oh, I failed at that. Oh boy, that's it. I even talked about my CAE endeavors. I'm never just going to leave it as it is. Now, mind you, there are some situations where we fail and we have to adjust and move on. Maybe we can't revisit it and make it a success in the future. But for those we can, we should definitely be persistent if that's something we want and continue to do. So I chose failure because one, most people don't like to talk about it. And two, I've had my fair share of them. As many things that I've won at, I've failed at many more. Sometimes that failure is going to be the catalyst to bring you into something new. Sometimes that winning streak just keeps going because you're using what you learned from your failure for your future activities and your future endeavors. So my failure at the CAE, or quote unquote failure at the CAE, turned into one that brought me a new network. I applied for DELP, for example, for the first time and didn't get into DELP the first time. And oh my goodness, I was so woe is me and so saddened by it because I knew what an amazing group the DELP program had. And I attended ASAE, I'll never forget it. I attended ASAE and I said, I am going to milk this experience, which is not like me at all. Although I love people, I am not the person to just go out to the events and meet other people and shake the hands. But that year, I made sure that I did that. And sure enough, I ended up running into a group of DELP alumni who were a part of the first DELP class, which I thought was the coolest thing ever. And they just encouraged me to do it again. And they said a lot of people don't get it the first time. It is a very competitive program. They educated me on the program. Not to mention, they educated me on what the program was looking for and who the program was looking for. And what they were saying sounded like me, but when I went back and looked at my application, it didn't really align. And so I said, well, maybe I need to take a look at how I write about myself, which has always been a pain point of mine, is writing about myself. And, you know, it's like I don't like to brag, and there's a difference between bragging and facts, right? So that experience actually taught me about how to talk about what I do, how to look at what I do and quantify it and qualify it and put it in writing. And the next time I applied for the DELP program, I got in with some amazing cohorts. And it's very clear that the cohorts that I'm with in this class is the right group for me. And that's why I say, depending on the journey, depending on the timing, yours will come. And this is definitely my time.
This is awesome. There are so many elements that I like in that story. So I'll take my time to unpack one at a time. Let's talk about that bragging factors and recognitions, being a better word, and quantifying your achievement
Mhm.
on the other spectrum of failure. What's the best recognition that you think you've achieved thus far?
Wow, that's a big question. The best recognition, it may seem small, but it's pretty mighty to me. One of my volunteers who had been through a lot with other organizations, not ours, but with other organizations, had a challenge as the chair of one of our component groups. And just her confiding in me and talking to me about what it is that she wanted, how she wanted to accomplish it. And we did accomplish what she wanted to accomplish in her year as chair was the greatest, I think, accomplishment or recognition that I've seen. And the recognition part came into play when she told the rest of her executive committee how our partnership helped her achieve her goals. Now, with all the CAE experiences and the DELP experience and the networking at all the events, it doesn't matter unless you put it into practice. So this was an opportunity for me to put that into practice. And it was the most satisfying thing to be able to help her contribute on the level that she wanted to as chair of her groups, even with the experiences she had had with other organizations. It made a world of difference. To this day, we have a bond that will not be broken because we work together and we partner together to accomplish this goal. I think that by far outweighs any and everything that I've ever accomplished in my career.
What I love about this is even though the question is about the recognition on your part, somehow you weave it back and recognizing how it elevates the people around you. So it's really truly demonstrate your values. Thank you for sharing that story.
Absolutely.
The second thing I want to unpack from your previous examples, you mentioned that failure is the catalyst of something new.
Mhm.
Can you elaborate from that with another example for us?
Sure. I mean, when you think about it in general, and working with mechanical engineers, I'm not a mechanical engineer, but as I know it, they operate until failure in order to produce a different result. So when we're looking at what we do, whether it's a professional level or a personal level, you have to continue to do it until you fail in order to see if it works, right? As a runner, for example, I'll do speed training. The goal of speed training is to run at a very fast pace for a very short time just to see how you feel and how you do as you prepare to strengthen yourself for a long marathon, in this case, for example. When you're doing things like that, you are operating in a space to overexert yourself, work extremely hard to see what comes of it. You don't do it to just fail and go sit down and have a burger. You do it in order to push yourself to become stronger, but you cannot become stronger if you don't fail. In the gym, for example, we're working out our muscles. We're weighing down our muscle or working till failure in order to gain strength. So there's never anything that is going to remain in a failure state unless you allow it to. The whole goal of failure is growth. So you can't fail, you can't grow if you don't fail. They go hand in hand. But it would be a pity for one to just fail and not learn from it because that's life. Life has guaranteed us failures on our left and on our right. But the goal is what are you going to pull out of it? And then what are you going to do with it? The important part is to make sure that you have growth opportunities that are connected to that failure because that's what it's meant to bring forth is growth.
Again, another powerful statement in there, how it's bring out growth. This really helped us to see failure in a different perspective. Now it becomes a lot less intimidating.
Yeah.
Until now, it's make more sense for us to embrace the experience and really don't worry about the consequences, right? Because
Sure.
if we're looking at success or failure, it is about the consequences. But if we're focusing on achieving the goals, implementing the task, then I feel that we can bring our whole self into the journey rather than we must be success. And that I think take off enormous pressure on our shoulder to perform.
Right, because you always get a choice, right? We always get a choice of what to take a look at. It's one of those glass half full or glass half empty
Mm.
type of situations. How are you going to approach this? And by doing little micro things like that, it definitely changes your perspective when we're talking about changing the mindset or training the mindset. Even in the little things like, oh, I got to go take out the trash today. No, I get to take out the trash because there are some people who don't have trash bags or they don't have designated places to put trash. And it's something as simple as that it will grow into bit larger things where you'll have a fresh perspective and really an attitude of gratitude towards everything that you see. And so failure is a similar way. You look at it, it all depends on how you look at it.
And I'll share one more thing. Your example also reminds me, mechanical engineer. My dad was a mechanical engineer. Growing up, he sponsored a lot of college students on different mechanical engineering projects, being mentor for the youth. I remember there was a time he got the students to our place and help them with building a mechanical robots.
Oh,
I was just amazed to see how they turn those material into movements.
I know.
And I've seen a lot of persistence in working through all of the trial and errors. Like you say, you just push it through and you see success. It's such a really satisfying moment when seeing a piece of metal just move by itself.
Very cool. Yes. Our mechanical engineers are geniuses in my opinion, and I think it is so great what they do because I can barely move my pencil.
I'm with you there. Now let's go back to our chosen keyword here.
Okay.
Was there a revelation point when you realized that failure is not as intimidating as we thought it would be? A point when you realized that it's okay to fail?
You know, I will say I'm dating myself, but I used to be a pageant girl. And so when you're in pageants, depending on the pageant, you actually have to sell tickets and do fundraisers. And then there's talent, depending on the age, there's all these other things. I recall when I was very young, I had this gorgeous baby blue formal gown, which was the best dress in everybody's eyes. I knew that I was winning this pageant. And I did not. I became first runner up. But when I finished, when the announcement was made, everyone was running up to me because of that baby blue dress. And my mom, my coach, actually showed me the value in not always being first. That sometimes you're going to be first at other things, and then other times you'll be first at the thing. I wasn't first at the biggest thing that day, but I was first in that baby blue dress. And I remember it to this day because it was gorgeous. And I was so young, and I don't remember a whole lot of things from when I was that young, but I remember that baby blue dress. And it did teach me to focus on the good. That goes back to making a choice of what to look at. No, I didn't get the crown, but I got the best dress. And I thought that was really apparent in the response that I got from the attendees that were at the event. And so I just twirled in my little dress and I took the win that I had and didn't focus on the win I didn't.
That's such a precious moment. How old were you at the time?
Oh goodness, I was probably 8. Yeah.
Sounds so cute.
Yeah. I was a little pageant girl all the way through high school. I was doing pageants and they were a lot of fun. I was very deep into the arts as well, all the charm and etiquette programs. My
Mm.
mom definitely kept me busy, and it was to bring different experiences to my life. And to this day, I'm the same way. I try to do things that other people don't do, try to go for different activities and experiences to kind of broaden my horizon. It's very easy to get caught up in the mundane world of just doing the same thing the same way every day. And we
Mm.
both know that there's not going to be any good results of that because you don't expand your brain, you don't expand your mind, and that limits your creativity. It's very helpful to have different experiences in order to increase that creativity.
That's awesome. I'm loving the positivity that you're sharing with us. I'm hearing a lot of self-determination, a lot of strong wills, and a lot of positive thinking that's been happening. Was there ever a time that you feel tired, that you feel that you need a break, that you feel that you want to just take a step back to give yourself some time to nurture and to be stronger?
Absolutely. That's why one of my points was that I'm grateful that I know when to say when. When you do so many things, it is very easy to tire. And people do a lot of things, but most people don't do things to a level of excellence. And so I grew up wanting to do things to a level of excellence. Whether it was through my undergrad years, my graduate school years, the CAE, everything, I wanted to do it at a high level. And so with that great exertion of energy comes the need to rest. I have always been focused on making sure that I don't have a balance. I don't want to balance because if I'm balanced, I mean I'm leveling out. I need more rest than I do the exertion of energy, because if I'm balanced, something is going to get missed. I really, I know that the balance is the kind of the topic. I need a little more rest so that I can do more. So sometimes I'm up in my rest, sometimes I'm up in my work, but I make sure that I take time to come back. One of the self-care things that I do is massages. I get massages every month. Yes, I do. I am a member. I make sure that I take that solid 90 minutes to rest. And as a runner, it definitely helps as well. So I do things like that. I love doing yoga. That is very important. It's my quiet time. It's my me time. I pair it usually with my morning devotion. That gets me started. It eases me into my day. And all of these elements really help with the positivity. If you're just go, 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 and you don't give yourself a moment to just be with yourself, it is really, really hard to ignore the chaos and focus on the good. And so by paying attention to how your body feels, paying attention to the time you spend on other areas outside of yourself makes a huge difference in your mindset and how you're able to accomplish tasks, whether it's with your family or professionally. It is definitely healthy to take a look at how you're doing, what you're doing, and when you're doing it, but know when to say you need to just rest. I'm that person. I will take days off. I have great bosses who encourage me to take days off. Doing what we do is very hard. It's very people focused, as I said, and that is a lot of energy. And so you're always giving energy you need to pour back into yourself, because you can't give what you don't have. So you're, for the betterment of the people around you, it's always good to rest.
Thank you. You gave us some great tools so that we can try and help us to build up that level of energy.
Mhm.
For the next part of the conversations, let's shift gears to look at the future.
Okay.
What's next for you in the coming 12 months?
What's next? Oh my god, I don't know. I've always kind of lived my life as opportunities present itself. I will say that I have been constantly seeking out opportunities to work with different people on a volunteer basis with the organizations that I'm affiliated with, and learn from different backgrounds and people who are in different areas. It's amazing the stories that I hear when I work or volunteer with another group of people, and how they have accomplished similar tasks that I am looking to accomplish as well. So volunteering is definitely something that is in the views of the future. It definitely helps whether I am doing a volunteer outside of my professional life, or I'm doing something with my career. It helps in working with other people and getting that diversity of knowledge. Otherwise, I think that, the sky's the limit. I'm not the type of person to kind of put on paper, I'm going to be here in 6 months and there and there and there, because sometimes you can get bogged down into that. I'm just one that keeps her eyes open and makes sure that she's ready for whatever presents itself.
I'm loving this. So, thinking about all of those goals that you just said,
Mhm.
how does failure fit into your plan to achieve this goal?
That's a great question. Well, failure is never planned, right? You always assume that you're going to achieve the task at hand. But as it presents itself, it's just another thing for me to learn from. The thing about failure is it'll present itself in different ways each time. So it may come in one way one time and then in another, but it's all about the preparation for it and the reaction after it or in the middle of it. So as I'm working with these individuals or volunteering with these people, Sometimes it may work, sometimes it may not, but it's all about the experience. And that brings me to what's so important about failure is learning from the experience so that you can use it in the future. Most times people don't try new things because of that fear of failure. So me working with these volunteer groups or being a volunteer in these areas is going to be new territory for me. But I need to make sure that I'm connected with new people so that I can be successful in other areas in the future. But if I just stay where I am and don't try those new experiences, technically I've already failed because I was too afraid to even try. So I'd rather try and fail than just sit here and fail.
This is awesome. You've just reminded me of another thing I've read. So basically the concept is the world change constantly. Everything around us change constantly. So
Mhm.
if we stagnate, we stay where we are, it means that we move backwards comparing to the growth of the world around us. You just really remind me of that. There was one thing you said that was really intriguing, and I'm going to throw another question now. You
Okay.
mentioned something about prepare for failure.
Yeah.
How are you doing that?
Another great question. I mean, V, you are killing it with these questions. What with the failure is you prepare, meaning you load yourself up with good things. I always say good vibes only, right? So you load yourself up with good things so that if and when that failure comes, because it always comes, and it never comes at an ideal time, but it definitely always comes. But when it presents itself, you will be prepared. A lot of times when life is good, we kind of coast through and we forget about the buildup of good things, taking yourself to lunch, doing yoga, listening to positive music, listen to great podcasts like this one, all the things that we need to keep us juiced up. So that way, when the juices aren't flowing as well, we can get into our repository of good vibes and good things and use that to help us in the current situation that we're in. So unknowingly, you're preparing for the failure while still expecting the great.
That's awesome. Thank you. We're getting to the last question of the episode, and this is hopefully a fun one for you. So imagine if you were going on a dream vacation tomorrow,
Mm,
right?
okay.
What is the one item that you would take with you?
My camera, not
Okay,
a cell phone, a actual camera to
right.
just capture all the things. I don't need a cell phone. I don't need to be contacted, but the camera, I'm talking high resolution 4K, no connectivity at all, because I wanna relive that. I want it to be pictures all over my house and wallpapers on my screens, all of the things. So, I would say a good old-fashioned well, new camera, but just a camera in and of itself, not connected to a tablet or anything else, so that I can focus and live in the moment, but still capture a little bit of the moment.
Thank you for that. This is the end of the episode. Thank you again and for joining me and sharing the story with us. That's it for today's episode. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. I'd love to hear your take on the chosen keyword. Have a lovely time and thank you again for spending time with Humans of Authenticity. Until next time.
I can absolutely nail down the one catalyst for that. And that was my daughter. As a baby, I'm like, she is going to grow up to be a young Black woman. And I do not want her to have this. Like, I don't want her to have these hangups. I don't want her to have these things. And a lot of her cues are going to come from me. So if I'm not okay with me, how can I pass on to her that she should be okay with herself?